has been talked about to be extremely strong on this patch. We haven't seen it all too much. We've seen it banned quite a bit, but not taken all too often. The Xin Zhao we hit on being left open, you would expect that to be the pick for OMG. The Sylas probably just going to go through, and we're going to see if LGD are going to be the ones willing to take it.
We're talking about the fact that Aki has played the Xin Zhao 9 times. He has almost an 80% win rate on Xin Zhao. This perfectly fits the style OMG like to run. We've got a Gwen and an Olaf as the answer from LGD.
Just really standard picks on their side, right? Olaf definitely coming up in prio, especially as an answer to the Xin Zhao. OMG now locking in the Jayce. I feel like we've been seeing a lot more of these poke comps or comps that can at least play off of range come out ever since teams have become more comfortable with the Jayce versus Gwen matchup. And there it is. OMG do get their hands on the Sylas. They even hovered the Orianna, I think, to be like, hey, we know what you're going to pick into this. And Xiye does go locking that one in. So you have a pretty strong, like, front-to-back 5v5 so far for the side of LGD. You have the Orianna ball to put on the Olaf who can run in. You have a lot of zone control coming out from the Gwen W as well.
Yeah.
So where for now, OMG, I think their comp can still go in different directions depending on how they round out with their bot lane.
I honestly would love to see Abel and Cold just go with like a Kai'Sa Leona or a Kai'Sa Nautilus or something like that. Just commit to this dive style, because I feel like Jayce can fit perfectly well within those kind of compositions, right? You get the Shock Blast out and then you dive in with the rest of the team when the fight kicks off. We'll have to see what direction they go, but honestly, I think that is when OMG have looked strongest, has been playing through things like the Kai'Sa and being able to just jump into the fray. But we'll have to wait and see. I am very surprised, though, that we see Creme on this Sylas once again. We've talked no end about how much Creme loves this Sylas pick, how dominant he is. We saw it against JDG, but clearly LGD feeling like they've got an answer, feeling like they're confident to go into what Creme can bring to the table.
Now I want to see if OMG ban out the Varus. They don't. They leave it open. I think that should be the pick that Kramer would want to go towards. It has been one of his most played so far this split, and teams have consistently banned it. I think it's been one of the champions where Kramer has looked pretty solid on. I think it's fair to say Kramer and Mark have been a pretty underwhelming bot lane pretty much ever since they've been put together. Even last year, it was nice to see them gap IG in playoffs and regionals last year, but haven't been able to put up the same performance so far this time around.
But to be
and
fair,
instead
like,
gonna lock in
I just want to mention that quickly. I expect this to be a jinx from Kramer, by the way. It's one of the picks that he's default to when there's a lot of bans. But last year, it's not like Mark and Kramer were just gapping bot lanes in general. It was just specifically IG's bot lane. It was just that LGD versus IG matchup. LGD, for some reason, was IG's kryptonite. Looks like OMG hovering the jinx for a second there. Does Abel take this away, deny the potential strategy? Looks like it's going to be the Nautilus, as they want a moment more to think about it. I like the Kai'Sa. I say go for the Kai'Sa, guys.
The thing is, I think they'll do it. I just don't think they should. I think LGD know that they would probably go for a champion like this, which is why they didn't ban it away. You have a lot of champions that Kai'Sa's afraid of jumping into. The Olaf, the Gwen in topside, the box able to come out from the Thresh. Even if OMG decide to lock in the Samira, I feel like it falls into the same vein that you're a very short-range AD carry. You want to get into the thick of things, and LGD's comp isn't the type of composition that you want to be running into. You highlighted the Jinx as a potential pick, but right now it looks like LGD considering more lane dominance to come out. We know things like the Ashe are still open, even though Kramer hasn't been one to play it. Jhin very much falling into the same vein. Still a bit surprised that the Varus prio has fallen off so heavily, and instead we do just get the Jhin coming out. So utility bot lane coming out for the side of LGD. I feel like we are once again looking a lot more towards top and jungle, and that was what we hit on, right? When LGD found their success, it was about Shadow and Xiye making their way up towards the top side of the map and finding advantages through there and really looking at picks once going into mid-game. And I mean, OMG haven't changed anything. We have another AD carry and support that want to go all in. You have Creme on a Sylas. You have New on Jayce, so playing much more for the laning matchup. It's the third time, I'm sorry, he's pulled out the champion so far this split, but Jayce always going to be relevant throughout the game with the damage he's able to bring, especially that 2-item mark. So I feel like we're getting what we expected out from both teams today.
And it does feel like we are going to see a good amount of skirmishing in the early stages of the game. When it comes to the Drakes and the Heralds, I feel like that's where a lot of this action is going to be centered. Theoretically, Jayce should be able to get prio in that top side over a Gwen in the early stages, so you could anticipate that perhaps OMG should be able to control the top side of the map and maybe play through Heralds and try and find a gold lead that way.
For sure, and it's going to be interesting to see because even though OMG, I think, have been pretty good individually, we've seen them really struggle, I think, to bring the pieces together other than just Creme himself roaming around the map. Aki is one of the lowest presence junglers in terms of linking up with his lanes. You will usually see him go for a very early gank to get someone rolling, but after that point, he isn't visiting lanes all too much, and it's much more about finding zone advantages.
We'll see if he can find those advantages as we head towards game number 1 here. It's OMG versus LGD. It's a middle-of-the-table brawl here, and it is fighting for playoffs. Now, I want to remind everyone of the stakes. What is up for grabs here? If OMG win this series, they will lock themselves in for playoffs. And LGD, if they lose, they will be out of the running completely. It will be the end of their split. They'll still have one more series to play, but it'll be the end of the road in terms of prizing, in terms of making it into playoffs. New has been spotted out by a very early ward being dropped up in the jungle. That was, I think Shadow was actually in that brush, dropped the ward and then recalled.
Yep, Shadow did that. Goes for the early red trinket as well. Trying to spot out if New would walk in. Also just giving Garvey a bit of information to play with in terms of, knowing when New's going to be weaving in and out of brushes. So going to help Garvey out a little bit in terms of that 1v1 laning phase. All runes are as we would expect to see. And both junglers going to be starting towards the bottom side. So we're going to be seeing what we were both hitting on, right? A lot of action towards the top half of the map. For LGD, it has just been expected of how they've been playing this split. And for OMG, it just goes with their composition. You're going to be able to find prio through topside with this Jayce. Open up for that topside scuttle to come out early. Shadow shouldn't be able to contest with the fact that he does have an Orianna in the mid lane, so Xiye not going to be wanting to look for any of those early river skirmishes. And it might lead Shadow to having to path back towards the bottom half of the map once he does pick up his red buff.
So I want to ask a little bit about this bottom lane, though, since we're going to see a lot of action towards the top side, and we anticipate... Oh, Creme actually going for a good chunk of damage there, but hey, melee versus range matchup, Xiye just gets 19 autos in to answer for the early trade. Suddenly, Creme realizes he's a level 2 Sylas. He doesn't get to do anything just yet.
No, but this is why for a long time, Orianna was considered a great matchup into the Sylas. We weren't usually seeing blind Sylas or Sylas picked into Orianna for the fact that you can look for the all-in, but it's very easy for her to find the trades on the way back. Her shield does very well at counteracting a lot of that damage as well. Let's remember that Orianna's passive gives her a lot more damage on her autos as well, so going to be able to get a good bit of chunk on the way out from Creme. And Sylas, in my opinion, not even the best user of the Shockwave. Sure, you can get in there and be able to use it just fine, but definitely higher priority and better ults for you to be able to take from other champions. Yeah,
feels like... Sylas is always one of those champions that's going to struggle in the earlier stages, especially against range. As you say, Ori having a particularly good matchup due to the shield. But I'm sure we'll see Creme coming into his own a little bit later on. Now, the junglers are making their way up to this top side. The top scuttle has just spawned. Both Scryer's blooms popped. The Shadow moves in. Aki on the top side, Shadow on the bottom side of the scuttle. Shadow is a level up and is Olaf, but it looks like he's not willing to go for the skirmish just yet. Garvey was recalling in the top side. It means Shadow will concede that top crab and instead go to the bottom river.
The big thing as well is that you saw Aki being patient, right? He was waiting for Creme's TP to be able to come in, knowing Creme will get prio and just be able to move first off. That's a Shadow. Gonna have to give that one up. As we guessed, gonna move towards that bottom side scuttle. And now no opportunities coming out for either side. Looks like Shadow just going to come and pop the scrying plant, see if there are any camps in the bot side jungle for Aki. There isn't, so reset's just going to come out and no action to be had just yet. Neither of these teams necessarily known for a ton of action in the early stages of the game. I think both of them are typically just more drawn to neutral objectives. So, Munch, we might be waiting until around that 7-minute mark with, Herald about to come up before these teams really look for a scrap.
So I wanted to bring up the bot lane earlier. Obviously, there was a bit of a scrap in the mid lane that kind of distracted me. I want to ask about Abel and Cold here. Now, we're seeing the Samira from Abel. This is only the second time we get to see it, but he did win the last game of Samira. He's played it once, 100% win rate. Samira Nautilus, I don't know the lane super well, but I'd imagine it is hyper-aggressive, right? Can we expect maybe some 2v2 action, or is it just not likely against a Thresh with this much disengage? Or engage, but a minion blocks Mark, it denies the potential catch. And it's just going to be both teams disengaging as Aki is threatening an invade onto Shadow, but Shadow started as clear on this bottom side, so he's quite happy to just keep on churning through those camps.
Yeah, now we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing Shadow be the one to walk in and ping Samira around mid lane with the fact that he does have push. Probably going to go for this Raptor contest right now. Instead, actually just hovering around mid lane. Going
all in on
Garvey.
the top side. Garvey's in trouble. Again, we keep on seeing Garvey falling in the top side. Fearness shaking his head behind the scenes.
And this just keeps happening. Garvey got solo killed every game in their series up against LNG. Comes into this one going down once again. And this is one of the points we were hitting on about Shadow not having as many options as he did before when Fearness was on the roster. Because Fearness, maybe not the best laner up and top side in the LPL when we do have so many absolute titans, but definitely one who is able to hold his own. LGD going to opt for the dragon play on the bottom side because Abel and Cole did go for that reset. I want to walk back to your point in the bottom lane. I definitely think there is kill pressure that is able to come out from OMG's bottom side, especially at that level 6 mark. Once we get open to ultimates being available, you can look for the engage, able to dash in, hopefully build up the style points and get the ult off. And Cold already going to look for it, but not even really much of a sidestep from Kramer and Mark. Just naturally we're walking back and the hook doesn't connect.
All right, let's take another look
here. Yep, just goes for the all and gets his full combo off. And I wonder what the items are on Garvey at that point.
I think he must have had that serrated Dirk. He must have gone back and got the serrated Dirk because he basically 100-0'd Garvey.
So New already had the serrated Dirk. I'm wondering what items Garvey was sitting on because, I mean, Garvey hit everything as well. There wasn't really much to see there, right? New hit his full combo, had more damage coming off in the end. It looks like Garvey probably just buying the cloth armor off of his most recent base, and New just able to take advantage of that. So OMG now swapping to just continually playing around their bottom half of the map. They are going to utilize that kill pressure that both Samira and Nautilus are able to bring.
You can't just walk in, man. I can't believe he just walked into that one. You could see the entire enemy team. Your enemy mid laner is missing. I don't know where you thought Creme was. That's going to be the flash burn from Xiye.
And now it's just going to be very easy for OMG to keep up prio in this mid lane. Creme just going to be able to continuously threaten engages on. Sure, doesn't have the hijack up, so you don't have to be worried too much about him being able to steal away your ult or looking for the engage in that way, but still Creme going to be able to find a lot of advantageous trades if Xiye walks up. And you always got to be worried about roams coming out from either Cold or Aki to punish that flashless Orianna. Does look like Mark going to be around the mid lane right now just trying to give pressure so Xiye can push out and, you know, just safely farm in that matchup.
I just had a thought. I'm looking at this Sylas and I'm trying to figure out which ultimates Creme wants to take later on in the game. Because Shockwave is a little bit janky when you're Sylas, right? It's only a melee Shockwave, so quite often very easy to miss. And looking across LGD's team, there really aren't many great Sylas ultimates to take. I'm thinking maybe that's why Kramer went for this Jhin instead of a Varus, right? Because it's that much worse for Sylas. There's a pick onto Cold. And so far, it feels like both teams just disrespecting what vision is available for the opponent's Shadow now. Knocked up. There's Creme to finish another kill. And for some reason, we see two players just completely taken out with no help from their teams.
I mean, I like the setup coming out from LGD to find the pick on Cold, right? That they had vision in that brush. Still for Cold, I think it is a bit unacceptable when you were sitting on control wards, you were sitting on a sweeper to not just look for those. But LGD set up the play, they were able to find the kill. Shadow going down, I think, is a bit more of a head scratcher in my mind. Xiye also sitting on no mana after that play, so he wouldn't be able to contribute much regardless. OMG with that pick on a Shadow are going to be the ones who are able to pick up this Rift Herald. And I feel like we've just seen teams punishing mistakes so far. No team really trying to push advantages. OMG, you know, power to them, have been playing a little bit through their bottom side. As we are going to see here, he's just sitting on a ward. The hook comes out. And wait, did Xiye? No, it wasn't Xiye. Shadow flashed in that play. Mark had the lantern though, so I honestly think that was a bit of a miscommunication coming out from the side of LGD.
I've like rewatched it now, and I still have no idea what the plan was there. Oh, Garvey gets knocked out. New doing a good job in this top lane matchup, having a CS lead for himself, and Aki has decided it's time to shut this Season 11 champion out of the game. Garvey knows what's going on, though, fully respects it, backs away, has no TP, though. And this very likely could just be the tower completely taken here. Drake not up for 50 seconds, so there isn't much of an answer for LGD.
You even see Creme using Fog of War up on top side, so Garvey in no way safe to sit under turret. I don't think LGD are in a position where they can really punish the bottom lane coming out. You'd want to see some heavy trading coming out from Kramer and Mark, get those health bars a little bit lower before you can threaten any kind of dive. Xiye does have TP advantage over Creme, so it is always possible to force a 4v2 dive, but in the end, LGD aren't going to opt into it. Looks like they're probably just waiting for the dragon to come up. That one is up in 15 seconds. And OMG are going to be behind on tempo because they made that play on top side.
Now, this next strike is going to be important. It's up in 10 seconds, and right now, LGD have control. The reason it's important, though, is because it's a Cloud Drake before Soul, which means we are guaranteed to have either an Ocean or an Infernal Soul. So this is a Drake worth fighting for, and you can see Nu has moved over. He went off of the reset on the top side and is now ready to fight for Drake. That means OMG will have numbers advantage, will be able to control this, and Nu has his teleport coming up in just a moment's time, so can always go back up to that top side and stop Garvey taking too much for himself.
Yeah, I would have liked to see OMG start this just, you know, a tad bit sooner because they saw Garvey showing on the wave. You already know he's there. You assume that they're timing his TP properly, so if you could have been a bit more efficient, Nu having to waste less time on the bottom half of the map. Now we're going to see Garvey potentially going to get a plate. Does look like he should be able to secure that one. No. He's just going to back away in the end. Doesn't have full information of where Nu is at this point in time.
From Cold. Xiye's in trouble here, and, well, Xiye doesn't get to play League of Legends. That's the power in Nautilus with a Sylas hijacked Shockwave.
And that was nice timing coming out from OMG. That shows that they are keeping track of Xiye's summoner spell because it was just about to come up. They find the window to make the play. LGD hovering around bottom side do have two members here.
Ooh,
Able nice sidestep though.
Yeah, still has his W as well, so he's going to be able to keep himself safe. Nicely played mechanically there from Abel.
And for OMG, despite the fact that I feel like against a lot of top teams, they have been pretty weak in terms of their laning phase, it definitely feels like OMG are just a version of LGD that maybe you have slightly better players, but they have an identity, they have a core, they stick to the champions that they're good on, right? That's why we're seeing things like Samira come out. That's why we're seeing, let's see how many games of Sylas for Creme. This is Creme's 11th game of Sylas so far, and OMG this kind of thing works in the LPL. We see it time and time again that just sticking to what you're good at and very early on finding a style is enough to get you to playoffs. I think E-Star being the team that jumps out to all of us last year in spring, that was enough to coast, and it looks like that will potentially be enough for OMG.
Not to put too fine of a point on it, but 2018 IG, 2019 FPX, they had pretty defined styles, and they didn't really shift much.
RNG this year?
Yeah, RNG this year, yeah. Like, doesn't feel like it's a new story here in the LPL to have a defined style that works for you, and it might be enough for OMG to make playoffs at this rate. They're almost 3,000 gold ahead at this point in the game, 13 minutes in here. And LGD starting to lose control of things, as Shadow will be able to finish his red buff, will walk away with his life, but it feels like the line of control is encroaching further and further up the map for OMG, and LGD, they have less and less breathing space.
I mean, just look at the gold differentials on the top half of the map, right? I mean, Nu is 1,700 gold up. Aki is about 500 gold up. Creme has an advantage for about 500-600 gold. So the whole advantage for OMG is on their top side. I like that we see Nu pushing up aggressively with Cold and Aki hovering around. They know where they're able to find their pressure. With that, LGD are looking to just play around the opposite side of the map. We haven't been able to see them really force anything in that 2v2. Haven't been able to get any heavy trading where Shadow's allowed to make a play. I do think Xiye could have used his TP advantage when we hit on it last time around to try and set up some sort of dive, but LGD being a little bit trigger shy are going to look for it this time with Shadow just sitting in the brush.
They'll try. Nu is here to attempt to clear the wave. He's on this Jayce though, and we've all seen Jayce's get dived in the top side. Here's a TP, flashes away from the death sentence, and a couple of tower shots for Kramer. Now OMG to answer the play. Shockwave onto Mark. Creme won't look for the engage though, decides it's time to back away. They don't want to overextend.
Yeah, if Cold had been a little bit closer, I feel like OMG could have looked for that one, but not going to risk it with just having Creme jump into 3 members all too soon. Instead, OMG going to look to put some pressure on this mid lane turret. I like what OMG are using their tempo to come towards mid lane. They'll be able to take this one for free. And the next Rift Herald is coming up right now, so this should be another objective that should be able to get into the hands of OMG.
Feels like OMG just have complete control of this game, right? Ever since that first Drake, which went the way of LGD, doesn't feel like they've had much of a moment to work with. Even trying to make the dive happen in the bottom side, but new outplaying. And now Herald for OMG, or at least it'll be started as Shadow is here, Xiye as well, and the bot lane moving over. This will be a full contest from LGD. New has TP, he's in base right now, but the Herald pulled all the way to the blue buff there, and will now finally reset. It's going to be Abel taking the blue buff, weirdly enough.
Yeah, it's quite strange. Not quite sure what they're going for there. OMG right now do have a mythic advantage, right? You have mythics on 3 members compared to 2 on the opposite side for OMG. You would expect that Abel's probably to pick up his Immortal Shield bow at this point, but not able to go for a reset when you are looking to contest this Herald. Flashes up across the board. You do see both Mark and New missing out on theirs. I would say News feels a bit more impactful. In the end, with the posturing coming out, you are going to see OMG win out. Probably the threat of the accelerated shock blast from New just going to push LGD to want to look towards the opposite side of the map. Dragon's coming up so they can get bottom side vision down now. And now if OMG want to contest this Drake, they're going to be walking in blind.
Or they can try and push another wave in the mid lane. They have a huge wave pushing in the top side as well, and they just picked up a Herald. LGD will get themselves an Infernal Drake, but the question is, at what cost, Lyric? Because OMG are going to push multiple tier 2s at this point. LGD are here to try and clear the wave in the mid lane, but New and Cold, they're just pressuring. They're just keeping the team busy while the Herald goes up top. Creme is there to help push that one in. That will be a tier 2 taken. And remember, the amount of gold from a tier 2 was buffed on this patch. Feels like an objective potential win with the tier 1 being factored in as well as an Infernal Drake. Maybe this could be positive for LGD if they can look towards a Soul.
I still like how we've seen OMG use tempo over the past few minutes, not even only just in this last play, right, but how they were connecting, covering bot with the TP to roaming towards mid to making their way up into topside river. So definitely good understanding of tempo coming out from OMG in that sequence. Recall's going to come out on both sides, and you're finally getting to a point where OMG are getting to their strongest point, right? Going to be waiting on that mana immune for New, and Jayce will just be an absolute monster. Garvey still not having his Rift Maker just yet, I think is going to hurt, where Garvey would just be functioning as your pseudo frontline, right? You aren't actually a tank, but you are a bit of a drain tank coming out with the amount of sustain you have in your kit and with the resistances and the projectile disruption coming in from your W. But he's just going to be so weak. I love what OMG are doing, just walking into the bottom side. Yeah. Garvey does have TP, but I don't think LGD are in any position to look for any kind of contest.
Projectile disruption. I'm pretty sure there are tablets you can get for that these days, Lyric. Medicine is advanced a long way. We've got Garvey pushing the wave up in the top side. It's going to force a TP out from New to respond to the pressure as OMG completely controlling the bottom side of the map here. Creme has that hijacked shockwave, and it feels like he's getting a bit antsy. Feels like Creme wants things to happen. He's got 4 stacks of this Dark Seal. He did really well earlier on in the game, and he's not had much of a window to do anything since.
LGD just haven't been contesting all too much. LGD been respecting, right? Once OMG start moving multiple members into one quadrant of the jungle, LGD just starts backing off. OMG are allowed to get their vision control, and it's been a decently controlled game so far.
It doesn't matter at all, but that was just hilarious. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
some of the Nautilus hooks that you see land, and then that one that's like basically on the wall doesn't pull him. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know what to say about Nautilus hook at this point. Creme is pretty lonely on this bottom half of the map right now, but maybe just looks for Shadow in a 1v1. Forces the Ragnarok and a Lantern out as well. I love how confident Creme is to just charge at the enemy and try and make things happen. Whenever he's on the Sylas, the Akali as well. It's just so much fun to watch this player.
I mean, a true solo queue star, right? I feel like that is what you would see coming from a solo queue player. You're like, hey, there's not enough happening. I need to be pushing the tempo of this game forward, kind of turning the cogs to the next step of the game, is looking for those plays. I do want to, move back to the Nautilus point real quick and saying that the most tragic one for me was there was one, I think it was in the IG versus one of the LGD series last year, where Balan looks for a hook on someone, and there's no way it tagged the wall, but I guess it did. The hitbox did, and he just pulled himself accidentally into 5 members of the enemy team, and it was just quite depressing to see. Poor Balan.
It's like, I remember when Nautilus came out back in my day. I remember that mechanic being put in the game where it was like your hook can hit champions, but it can also hit terrain. And back when Nautilus came out, that was like, oh my god, what a cool, crazy, game-changing mechanic. And back then, champions just had one cool mechanic per kit as opposed to 17. But I remember that being like such a dramatic, cool thing. And nowadays, it feels like a negative a lot of the time, honestly. Nautilus, so often, his hook being able to pull terrain ruins him as opposed to actually helping him out.
Yeah, and now you have champions like Akshan. Assuming that's how his name's pronounced. If his name is pronounced Action, I was going to say I'm actually really, really depressed by that.
I think it's like Akshan, I believe, which
Akshan.
Like it's almost like a U sound. The proper syllable isn't really in the English language, but it's similar to kind of like a U sound.
I mean, I'm still okay with that.
I apologize if I've butchered that.
As long as it's not Action, I think we're totally good. But looking at all the little tricks in his kit, definitely
Eric,
League of Legends coming a long way.
It's 3-1, so it's definitely not Action. There's been anything but action in this game, that's for sure. I don't want to talk too much about Action because I feel like I could talk about him for a long time, and it's not necessarily positive things. As Aki being able to block the shots with his ultimate. Cold happy to tank a couple up as well. OMG make an attempt on the bottom tier 2. It's not going to happen though. And everybody backs away again. But Drake is up lyric, so that at least is a consolation prize for OMG.
My problem is I feel like we're way too far off for Soul, for OMG to be able to threaten any kind of Soul and be playing out this type of game we've been seeing for the last few minutes, right? Which is ping-pong side waves back and forth. You're going to play around your strong side where Creme is, push into the enemy jungle, get vision down, and get a bit of damage on the turret, but wait for the dragon to come up. You're far too off from that. I think for OMG, you got to be setting up topside. You got to be setting up around this Baron, trying to threaten a contest, pull them out of their jungle, look for the engage, because if not, you're only giving time to members like Xiye and especially Garvey, where Garvey was pretty much taken out of this game, now given time to scale. And LGD will have windows to where they're able to win late, sure. Do they have champions like Olaf and Jhin, which maybe aren't the most useful late game? Yes. But we know the amount of AoE coming from Gwen, as well as the shockwave from Xiye, will definitely be enough to turn a fight if OMG make one overstep. So I'd like to see OMG be a bit more proactive, start making their way up to topside, push in this mid wave, walk into the enemy jungle, get some wards down, and pull LGD out of their base. LGD are being allowed to turtle when I don't think they should.
And also, I mean, just look at the composition from LGD. It is comfort for this team. So you've got Xiye's Orianna, which I would say is maybe his most prominent pick historically. You've got Kramer on the Jhin. We saw all of 2020, every AD carry in the LPL is more than happy to play Jhin. And Kramer on these more passive AD carries certainly thrives. And then there's Garvey, who's on Gwen. Let's be honest, Gwen exceptionally strong in the late game, can straight up 1v5 fights. This is not the kind of composition that you want to just stall the game out forever on. And it feels like the later stages of the game, for a Xin Zhao, for a Jayce, for a Samira, they don't necessarily get better. I feel like this is the strongest OMG's comp is going to be.
I mean, we saw in the early game that Abel had a CS advantage earlier on, Creme was even, and knew about held the advantage he's had in CS the whole time. But I mean, the fact that they've dropped so many waves on sides, allowed for LGD to keep farming out their jungle and pick up side waves, is just a bit of a problem. They are maintaining about a 3.5k gold lead, so that's fine, but it feels like at some point as OMG, you're gonna have to force that Baron.
Frost comes out from Creme, doesn't quite connect. That's a huge shock blast onto Kramer, though. He is not enjoying the cues coming out from New. But again, it's just going to be... we've got a bit of an ARAM going on, to be quite honest, Lyric, because I think OMG are just waiting for Drakes. Maybe they've just changed the win condition in their mind and going, okay, let's just play for Drakes instead. That top tier 2 that is down, That was taken, what, like 10 minutes ago at this point? It feels like OMG have not been able to find a single extra bit of space on the map.
You even have a few riskier plays in OMG's playbook that you can realistically look to make, but you'll be opening avenues for LGD to trade on the opposite side of the map. So what you can do is, you know, have Creme, Aki, and Nu even like push out one side lane very deep with the Jayce and Xin Zhao hiding in one brush, look for a pick and then try to turn that into something, but you will be opening up space for LGD to be able to respond. So I still feel like the best choice for OMG would be looking to more hard force, not necessarily even taking the Baron, right? But just committing to it to get LGD onto the map. But they're not going to do that. Xiye, once again, going to be allowed to freely push out a side wave. Now Xiye sitting on 2 items, getting to a point where he's pretty strong, where, you know, Orianna damage early on in the game is, you can pretty much just shrug it off. Now will be able to do quite a bit. Garvey, who did not have his mythic for the longest time, now already making his way closer to his second item.
And I love that we get to see Cold running with a Zhonya's as well. This is one of the items that I think is... It's one of the few fun items that supports get to build these days, where it's pretty much a Nautilus pick, but we've seen it on like Leonas and things a little bit as well, but gives you that... You get to go for the combo on Nautilus, and quite often what you'll find with Nautilus is they go for the big combo, they pop their ult, they pop their E and everything in the fight, and then they kind of just... walk around for a bit and don't do a whole lot of anything until they've got cooldowns back up. Well, now you can go in the middle of everyone. You're usually super squishy, but you just Zhonya's for a while, and then you get your cooldowns back up. Beautiful.
And I mean, I think Zhonya's totally... Don't want to exactly use the word busted, but definitely very strong item. I still love the game. I can't remember who it was. I think BLG was playing, where we saw it on all 5 members. It was BLG. It was on all 5 members. Yeah. That was a great game of League of Legends, but just being able to buy time for another rotation of cooldowns, I think is so critical in a lot of fights and skirmishes and being able to win out. So, but for OMG...
You know, as an AD carry main, I envy Zhonya's users. Man, I wish there was an AD Zhonya's. Like, Zhonya's is so infinitely better than GA, man. It's... the comparison in like strength between those 2 items, it's not even remotely close.
Yeah, just, you know, just do what I think Aiming did in that game, play Ezreal, and then just buy Zhonya's anyway. But Munch, I gotta say, I feel like this, what we're seeing in this game, maybe not gonna bode too well for either of these teams in the, you know, the hunt for an LPL championship or a world seed, because I feel like any team would have been able to just force so much more on the map by now if we had an RNG and FPX, even making our way towards the middle tier, right? Even if maybe a Suning or a WE would be able to do more.
So, I'm torn on whether or not to ask you this question or not. I'm going to go for it. You've been a coach, Larry. If you're a coach on OMG, on LGD right now, what is the ultimate goal? Is the goal still like, we're going to make it to Worlds? How much do you allow yourself into the kind of... Like, these teams know that they are not top teams right now. How much do you think in terms of the team atmosphere, the belief is Worlds? And how much do you think it is like, let's get to playoffs first, and then maybe there's a miracle run?
I think a lot of that actually depends on team atmosphere, because as someone who coached a mid-tier team in the LMS for a long time, where realistically looking back, we probably never had a chance at going to Worlds, if the team atmosphere is fine, you're still able to convince yourself that it's possible. So, you know, maybe for OMG or LGD that is there. I think for LGD that was the expectation with this roster coming in, right? There would be no reason you're bringing back players like Xiye and Mark, who, you know, might be decently expensive with the amount of experience they have. To where OMG... I feel like with the hype that you built up, it's still there, but if you just make playoffs, it's the first time since 2017 for this organization. That is a win in and of itself. That's
very true. OMG trying to grab their first playoffs in literal years here, but they have complete vision control of the Baron. The observers very kindly showing us that there is no vision whatsoever for LGD. And OMG, they can just zone away while a couple of members just burn through. This one, it's going to be Nu and Aki on the Baron, as Abel playing for zoning here. Blue Trinket comes in, but it's too little too late from LGD, and OMG, they finally make a play. They got another Drake as well a couple of minutes ago. It feels like OMG starting to turn the heat up, and hey, Garvey, he'll get a tower, but that doesn't feel like enough in answer for a Baron.
Munch, I am so happy. I am so happy we finally see this play. You can see, because we have cams, my hands are up in the air. Life is good. OMG finally made their way towards the Baron. I feel like it's going to push us to actually, you know, getting to see something happen. OMG now going to start pushing in their waves, threatening under turret. LGD going to be put in a position where they maybe have to look for an engage. Blood is coming, my boy. Blood is coming.
I don't know. I've been lied to before, Lyric. I'm not sure I'm ready to have my heart broken. You're building my expectations here. Could we actually see a team fight? I almost don't believe it. We'll have to see. As OMG grouping up on the bottom side of the map, they already took the tier 2 on both side lanes. So mid lane, you would expect is the next port of call, but they do have exceptionally strong side lane pressure, right? With a Jayce and a Sylas, they can certainly play 1-3-1.
I feel like for OMG, you probably would have wanted to have someone answer top wave. You don't necessarily want to have someone hard pushing that out, but maybe at least start like a slow push or a push back to the enemy side, and then play this 2-lane setup where you do have members like Xin Zhao, Nautilus hovering back and forth to where Creme able to hold the wave on one side and just kind of play out by, you know, ping-ponging between each side, seeing if you can find picks or put the damage out. This
There's a hook, Lyric! Moment of truth? No, Cold flashes away. He gets away with it. And Creme has stolen the box. Maybe the least impactful ultimate to steal for Sylas. Or I guess not least impactful, but certainly not exactly overwhelming with power. OMG, after one hook onto Cold, looks like they're not super confident, but they are going to stick around, at least for the time being. The problem they have is the waves aren't synced up, Lyric. So they're taking it in turns to push bot, then to push mid, then to push bot, then to push mid, and it means that LGD can just answer each one of these pushes one at a time.
I mean, a lot it's going to come down onto Nguyen if he's able to hit these EQ combos. Does get a good bit of damage down right there. Yeah, like you said, good hook coming out.
The shockwave going to be Zhonya's by Abel. I was wrong. It is an AD carry item after all. As Cold takes a couple of shots here. Creme is off on the side, and he's getting wrecked by Garvey. Look at the damage coming out as Garvey finds himself the kill. And OMG, after all this time in the lead, it's falling a little bit apart here. But LGD can't quite chase them down.
We still got to the point where OMG had Baron, they pushed in waves, and LGD were forced to do something. I feel like OMG still might have just sat on their advantage for far too long rather than looking for those plays earlier. You know, last time we hit on items, Xiye was at 2.5, now making his way up towards 3.5, finishing out the Morellos. So is some healing on the side of OMG, right? Creme, Abel, I mean, having stuff coming out from the items of both New and Aki as well. So maybe just wanting some more immediate power by finishing that one off outright, as this would be soul for OMG. 15 seconds. Once again, Munch, I'm going to get your hopes up because we are going to get something. LPL does bring action. No copium needed here.
It's Infernal Soul. If LGD don't fight for this one, I give up. Creme has teleport available, needs to get over to this pit right here, but he will not have his flash. Creme stealing away the shockwave. This is the moment. Aki's in the middle of everyone. Shockwave not going to come out just yet. It's only onto 2 there, but here we go. Abel onto the back line as well. Damage coming across the team as OMG finally get to use their gold lead. We finally get blood for the blood god. This is a 1-for-1 trade. AD carry for ex-AD carry. All right, in fact, it's New, not Garvey, but who cares? We got to fight, Lyric.
We gotta fight. That's what we've been waiting for this whole time. We saw Creme fighting his way in. Mark gets instantly deleted. And now we're gonna see how much OMG are gonna be able to do with this push. They will at the very least get an inhibitor. Not sure if death timers are long enough for them to go for an outright end though, but they might be.
Might just be. They still have 20 seconds to it. Lyric, I think they're going to be able to do this one. They've got an Infernal Soul as well, so extra damage coming on in. They've got Creme and Abel, who are both great at shredding these towers. One tower down. They're just going to kill Thresh as he walks in. See you later, Mark. Write a death sentence about that one. 9-4 in the end. It's not the fastest game we've ever had, but OMG take the victory.
You know, I feel like there could be a lot of positives come out with like, OMG, great performance, but I still just feel like that was not it from either team, right? I feel like you go into playoffs with this sort of performance and you're just gonna get so heavily punished by even the teams just right above you, as we were hitting on earlier. The teams like potentially a top esports, a BLG, a Suning. So gonna want to see more come out from BLG in the next game, or LGD as well. We saw the type of composition that LGD did go for, so once they fell behind, it made sense why LGD were the team trying to buy time, especially when OMG are just giving it to you for free. OMG are just like, hey buddy, just, you know, you can have an extra 15 minutes in this game, scale up, get your Orianna items, and try and come back in. But in the end, it didn't matter. It came down to one engage, and OMG just going to keep defaulting to their picks. People not going to listen to the image we showed before, Munch. Your puzzle. No one listening to your puzzle.
I know. We made a puzzle for you guys. Someone email LGD. Just get them on the Weibo or whatever. Get them on the Weibo. What am I, 70 years old? Jesus. So many
Oh my god. LPL quick shot. LPL quick shot.
Look at his hairline. It's getting disastrous over here. I've completely lost my train of thought with that one. But yeah, LGD, just ban Sylas, please. You gotta ban Sylas. Even picking picks that Sylas couldn't get really great ultimates, it doesn't matter. Shockwave is good enough, especially for Creme, because at the end of the day, you want to be in melee range anyway, so even if you just use it on one person, it still does crazy damage.
Yeah, I mean, this game happened.
It was a game.
It was,
yeah. I've got something I want to say, Lyric. Because I feel like we're about to go into full-time conversation. I have a real conversation we can have. Isn't it interesting to see teams like LGD and OMG that, if you think back 5 weeks ago, everyone on Twitter, everyone on the internet was like, oh my god, LPL is so strong. There are 13 teams that could be at the top of playoffs by the end of the year, etc., etc. We're all super excited. I have a totally different outlook on the LPL right now comparatively to then. We do not have 13 good teams right now. We have a lot of teams that have fallen off towards the end of the split, and I feel like both of these teams are in that category for me. I feel like now we're in the category of 6, maybe 7 really strong teams that there's going to be some fluffing about there, and we have 3 super solid top teams. And this, in my mind, at this point, there's a pretty big gap between the strong teams and the actual top teams that are going to really perform at the World Championship.
I definitely agree, right? We're looking at teams like FPX and RG, I think especially differentiating themselves from the pack. And then teams like OMG, LGD, the JDGs of the world, I think even being a bit of a tier below. We'll give OMG a bit of benefit of the doubt because they have been a team that have had a lot of exciting high-tempo games. LGD have been the team that have just kind of slowly fallen off to where they are now.
Yep, feels like neither team, though, being particularly proactive in this one. OMG, slightly more proactive, but not as much as we would have liked.